Imagine walking into a store and getting denied service, to your knowledge, for no reason. Imagine walking into a room full of people and all judgeful eyes are on you, to your knowledge, for no reason. Laws have been created in the past to segregate, then demolished, recreated differently in the present to segregate, and need to be presently demolished. Segregation can be caused from multiple things such as race, ethnic background, culture, religion, class differences, or a combination of these. Segregation in America has once again become out of hand. The country is becoming a haven for people who are ignorant in history, the trickle-down effect, and the carelessness of another human being in their goodwill. You can be segregated in America for the color of your skin, the sex you're attracted to, the looks of your clothes, the people you talk to, and honestly, there's no cap in all kinds of ways how you can be segregated today. Segregation is alive in America. Anyone who is perceived to be different than normal is segregated in some type of way. When looking on the web for information about segregation, there's only one large main associated topic with this, and separation of races. What I wanted to stress is yes, this can be a problem in America today. However, we have a lot of other very major problems going on in America that we really need to overcome with segregation. The two biggest battles of segregation right now would, like we said, the segregation of race, but also the segregation of same-sex marriage. We feed off the terrible stuff we hear on the news, social media, the posts and the pictures that we hear, and the 10-second videos that we thrive on every 5 seconds to watch. We need to unite, not see anyone for who they like, the color of the skin tone they have, or what social status they belong in, but who we are as human beings. On the website from Columbia University, the teachers took interviews on segregations in the school system from the past and present. It states, and I quote, "Still in nearly every interview, blacks, whites, Latinos, and Asians discuss the value of school desegregation in shaping their views about race and helping them overcome fear and distrust of people who are different. This is by far the strongest finding in our data, and thus it's difficult to represent with just one quote. But a white Austin high school graduate who came from an upper middle class family was representative when he said, 'Growing up in a racially integrated school, I think was invaluable for me. I just feel it helped me my people skills. It gave me the ability to just relate to any person and feel good about it, and to just be secure and not putting on an act on and fake about not caring for another person. I can't put enough value on it,' unquote." And that is the quote from, like I said, Austin High School student graduate from upperclassmen. So you see, there is good coming from, integration and desegregation. Once schools stopped that, it definitely helped a lot of people out in many different ways that were unknown. Segregation in America is creating an unwinning war between the people. What I wanted to focus on with you all is segregation in America in the past, segregation in the present, and how we can also thrive on desegregation in the future. The first thing to understand how to start the process of desegregation is what segregation has done to us in the past. The main problem in the past with segregation was the race, obviously. We all know the history of, the segregation of race. America had a century of racial segregation from 1849 to 1950. American Europeans raided Africa and came back to the States with people whom they thought were lesser of them because they're uneducated, according to the people who took them from their home, and thought they were living in poverty, so they were less of people than they were. They saw them as easy targets to take over, so they made them slaves to slave over them hand and foot and cater to their every need. They were not counted as American citizens and did not have basic human rights. They were looked down upon because they were different, yet they were still human beings, and they deserved everything that the next human being did deserve too as well. After a long time of hatred and ignorance, the people stood as one and stood for their rights. With the help of some the great heroes of our country, such as Abraham Lincoln, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and many others who made history and took a stand for what's right. We overcame segregation and race. I'm sorry. We passed many laws that ensured the color of your skin did not declare you any less of a person than somebody else did. After the Civil War, it became an uproar of racial flurries. John Adams, a former slave, quoted, "Now we are free. What do we want? We want education. We want protection. We want plenty of work. We want good pay for it, but not any more less than anybody else. And then you will see the downtrodden race rise up." However, it was a long road till the now free people could get to this point of equality, I should say. Still, years after, blacks could not go into white stores, whites couldn't go into black stores. You had your own water fountains, bathrooms, sections of the bus, places to eat, schools to go to, and pretty much whatever you could think of. It was segregated, and it was really wrong. And pretty much that was America at that time. America had to have a war within itself, many riots, petitions, and even deaths and murders to finally find the peace of desegregation. On the website created by the National Museum of American History, it states, "After the Civil War, millions of formerly enslaved African Americans hoped to join the larger society as full and equal citizens. Although some white Americans welcomed them, others used people's ignorance, racism, and self-interest to sustain and spread racial divisions. By the 1900s, however, new laws and old customs in the North and the South had created a segregated society and condemned Americans of color to second-class citizenship." With this all being said, you can see for yourself America was at its worst times during this century of racial segregation. We literally had to kill our own people because we had different views than someone in another state, and we had to prove a point that way. We had to have our own war in America, the Civil War, to fight for what is honestly right. Segregation in the past almost ruined our country, which is why we need to work on a way to create desegregation. Now that we have covered segregation in the past and how horrendous it was, I will discuss how segregation is ruining us currently right now. Let's face it, this is America, home of the brave, land of the free. With every human being having their own rights and free will to express your own speech and religion, freedom of speech and religion, you can imagine that there are many different opinions out there in society, which makes it America so unique and so really, really good. But we are self-destructing ourselves by creating a new type of segregation, by freely expressing ourselves in the wrong way. In today's society, the battle we are facing right now is same-sex marriage. As a couple months ago, the Supreme Court ruled that there can be the same-sex marriage, but before that, it was shown as illegal and never possible. Imagine if you had the person you loved with all of your heart, whether you prefer same or opposite sex, and you were told you can't marry them, that it was illegal, that there's no way that would ever happen. And imagine how you would feel. You cannot have the same basic human rights as the next one to marry who you want. You can't adopt, you can't have kids, you can't have insurance together, you can't have basic marriage rights. They're just not there. And that was never there for same-sex couples. Well, as of the other month, a couple months ago, they passed a law stating that same-sex marriage is completely legal in every state, which is a really good step. However, there still are people out there that completely disagree with anything with same-sex marriage, which is a whole nother topic. But in the Slate website, it states that how Kansas is trying to pass a bill after the fact that same-sex marriage has been completely legal. They're trying to pass a bill, and it states, when passed, the new law will allow any individual, group, or private business to refuse to serve gay couples if, quote, it would be contrary to their sincerely held religious beliefs. Private employers can continue to fire gay employees on account of their sexuality. Stores may deny gay couples goods and services because they are gay. Hotels can eject gay couples or deny them entry in the first place. Businesses that provide public accommodations, movie theaters, restaurants, can turn away gay couples at the door. And if a gay couple sues for discrimination, they won't just lose, but they'll have to pay the attorney fees of the person they're trying to sue. As I've noted before, anti-gay businesses might as well put out signs alerting gay people that their business just isn't welcomed. And does this sound familiar? I just want to point that out there. We are following the same footsteps as the past. At the same time, even though it is not as severe, we are still suffering with racial segregation as well when encountering the segregation of same-sex marriage. This is an unnecessary battle we have and are still trying to take basic rights from people who are different in people's books, and people that view that as wrong because they're different. Nothing affects you, so why do you honestly care if somebody likes the same type of people they are or they don't? It just doesn't make sense to me. Who cares what the color of your skin is? Why wouldn't you be able to come into my business and have a meal? Who cares if you're with your boyfriend and you just so happen to be a guy, and why would I not let you into my business and have a meal? Doesn't make sense. But now that we have a clear understanding and we're on the same path as the past, we need to focus on the path to desegregation in all aspects. And I quote on the website, on June 26th, the Supreme Court handed down its decision in Obergefell versus Hodges, bringing marriage equality to every state in America. Immediately, conservative politicians and lawmakers railed against the ruling as an illegal act of judicial supremacy and demolition of states' rights. Their responses were quite similar to those of pro-segregation lawmakers following Brown versus Board of Education and subsequent desegregation rulings. And if you're not familiar, Brown versus Board of Education was a black individual that tried to sue for his basic rights as an American citizen. He actually ended up losing that one on his own, but it's basically showing how they're the same thing. They're the same type of rulings, how it's not okay to determine somebody's human rights because they're different. And what is really different? How does society declare something as different? But anyways, on the right track, we are on the right track to desegregation, but we still have a long way to go. The website of the National Bureau of Economic Research stated positive outcomes of desegregation. The average high school graduate rates for blacks and whites in Rutgers samples were 73 and 88%, respectively. On average, children were in desegregated schools for 5 years, and each additional year that a black child was exposed to education in a desegregated school increased the probability of graduating by 1.3 and 2.9%. For black men, spending time in desegregated schools as a child also reduced 14.7% the probability of spending time in jail by the age of 30. I just wanted to give that quote to show how segregation really does impact people as a whole. If you're told that you're wrong because of the color of your skin, it honestly will affect you. If I was told because of the color of my skin that I'm a lesser person and I don't deserve those same rights as anybody else, I would really get really angry. And of course, outcomes like jail and uneducation and things like that would occur because I'd be angry at the world. It all just really makes sense. Today I explained to you the problems we have had in the past with segregation, the problems we currently face with segregation, and what we need in order to do to reach desegregation in the future. Segregation has and is still breaking America at the seams. As previously mentioned, segregation in America is creating an unwinning war between the people of America. The United States has been on a rocky path of segregation for centuries now. We have been on the fence of going overboard to complete anarchy and still staying afloat to not being in complete mass destruction of each other. With that being said, we need to not feel the fire of the media and see past the differences of each other. Imagine if everyone was the same in the world. There was not a single difference in every single person. And if you're interested in seeing that outcome, there's a movie about that, actually. It's called The Giver, and it's a really good movie, a really good book as well. It's a good read, and it explains what happens if everyone was the same exact person with no differences. Anyways, America is one of the greatest countries in the world, but we still have the ability to express ourselves as freely as we want. So express yourself, your true self. Do not judge anybody, and you wouldn't want anybody to judge you for being different. So if anybody decides to be different, don't judge them. Separate is not equal. My questions for the audience would be, do you think segregation in America is a problem today? Also, how would you feel if you were being segregated in a way? And another question I have would be, like I pointed out, I feel like we're in the same path as we were in the past with the segregation we're doing currently. Do you feel the same way? Do you think that we're in the same path of riots and laws and all that stuff? Do you feel like we're in the same path? All right, and that's my questions. Thank you.